Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the title of today's video, I will be reading the 10 most popular horror books of 2024. So, according to this article, these 10 horror books are the most popular of 2024 so far. I will leave the list down below if you are interested. It has like all of the different categories, which is nice, because in years past it's just been the most read, not broken down by genre, so it's quite interesting to see the different genres. I have done this before with the romance a couple of months ago, and now I'm going to do it with horror. I don't discuss horror a ton on my channel, but I'm a huge horror lover. I don't have a horror podcast for no reason. So I love me some horror, but I just haven't been reaching for it. I haven't been picking it up, except for like an occasional extreme horror that I find on like Kindle Unlimited, or like I get recommended to me. So I am desperate for some horror. So let's take a look at the Goodreads list and see what we're going to be reading. Some of them I have read and will talk about, and then others I'll actually be reading in this video. The first slot is Hidden Pictures. Now, at the time of filming this intro, I don't know if I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read the other books on the list, and then I'll decide if I'm gonna read this. If I'm not even really like in the bookternet space, but I know the like right-wing propaganda that's going on with this book, and I kind of I don't know the particulars of the twist, but I know what the situation is with it. So like, do I want to give the author money from me reading this on Kindle Unlimited? Like, we'll see. I'm gonna make that decision towards the end, but at this point I'm not feeling reading it. So number 2 is Holly by Stephen King. Okay, let's talk about Holly by Stephen King. I'm not gonna read a Stephen King book. Nothing about this sounds interesting to me at all. It's a detective novel, which I don't like. It follows a character that was already established in another series that I'm not connected to, and the story is about her trying to find a missing person who's just been like kidnapped by these people in this town. I'm not interested, so let's move on to the next book. Bunny is number 3. I have read Bunny. I read it several years ago. It's not shocking to me that this is still on the most read horror list. This is extremely popular. It's very weird. It's a like dark academia horror novel. It's odd. It's an odd book, and the people who love it like fucking love it. I didn't love it. I liked the first half, and then the second half I didn't like where some of the plot lines went. I think I landed on either a 3 or a 2 star for that one. Tender is the Flesh is number 4, and I have read this. This is a futuristic story set in Spain, I believe, and the world is cannibals. All animals, everything has died off. There is no animal meat, so people are eating each other, and it's become like a whole industry where there is like people who are bred just to be eaten. It's gruesome, it's disgusting, and the main character is sort of like a morally gray character. He's involved in the meat packing industry. It's amazing. It's an amazing horror book. It's so good. The audiobook is spectacular, and I gave it 5 stars. It was one of my favorite horror books last year when I read it. It's spectacular. Again, not surprised that it's on this best list because it's peak horror in my opinion. It's fucking fantastic, and I would recommend it to anybody that likes horror. Number 5, we have Frankenstein. To be entirely honest with you, I don't really have any interest in reading this, so I'm not going to. Number 6 is Grady Hendrix's How to Sell a Haunted House. I am 62 pages into How to Sell a Haunted House. I have had not good luck with Grady Hendrix. I have not liked either of the books that I've read by him. I'm not massively gripped by this. This story follows Louise, who has recently found out that her parents passed away. She travels to their small town to take care of the funeral and all of the arrangements. As the title would suggest, I I'm not at that point yet, but I believe she eventually decides to sell the house. But all we've seen so far is her bickering with her brother, who is estranged and also acting a little bit oddly, and some other family members that still live in that town. And we've also seen some like weird stuff with dolls that her mom collected. Her mom has a massive doll collection, and she also had like a puppet ministry, so she used puppets to talk about Bible stories and all of that. So the house has like cases and cases of dolls, and we've seen like a TV get turned on and off by the dolls and weird stuff like that. Not too terribly much has happened. Grady Hendrix's writing is definitely not the issue, and not why I like the syntax is the basic writing style is not why I tend to dislike Grady Hendrix's books. So at this 30 pages, I'm not, you know, feeling any type of way about it. I don't have like any grand opinions. So I'm probably going to get to the halfway mark and give you guys an update. I am anticipating it's gonna be fine. You know, it's a haunted house story, right? So I don't think it's gonna be anything crazy, wild, blowing my mind, but I would like to know why this is on everybody's favorite. Like, I know why. The hype, the name, all of that. Why it's on the most read horror of the year. But like, does it deserve to be there? We'll see. I got 113 pages into this, and I could actively feel my brain melting at this book. I don't like this, and I think the general opinion that I have come to is that Grady Hendrix is just not for me, and I have decided to DNF this one. I don't like DNFing 2 books for reading vlogs, but I refuse to read this book only to give it 2 stars and struggle my way through it and possibly ruin the entire reading vlog for myself. So it was just someone cleaning up a house simulator. Like, she was just going through her parents' stuff and arguing with her brother about the rights to the house and all of that. It just wasn't it. I am going to avoid Grady Hendrix in the future. I understand that he is popular, and if I ever do a video similar to this in the future, that his books will probably be on there just because of his popularity, but I am not impressed. So we have Mexican Gothic, which I have read. Another absolute favorite of mine. It's actually right here. Fucking good. It's a spoiler. It's about a haunted house. It's about a woman who goes to her cousin's husband's home because she is reporting, like, her letters are weird, and when she gets there, unhinged shit is happening. We have number 8 coming in at What Moves the Dead. I am 50% of the way through What Moves the Dead, and I actually read The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe in preparation for this, so I thought we could talk about both, because What Moves the Dead is a retelling of Fall of the House of Usher. So, Fall of the House of Usher is a short story by Edgar Allan Poe, and it follows an unnamed narrator who goes to a friend's house where that friend and his sister are dying, and they live in the Usher house. And the Usher house and the Usher family are incredibly well known. They are like a legacy family, old money, all of that. The Usher family has always lived in this mansion, and the mansion is completely falling apart. It's really run down. It's very like moldy, and both the sister Madeline and the friend Roderick are ill. Madeline ends up dying pretty soon after the main character gets there, and then we're watching the dissolution of this family, basically. Short story is really well done. The audiobook specifically that I listened to is fantastic. It's on Everand, and I really liked it. It's spooky, it's gothic. The Fall of the House of Usher story is very interesting. I like the TV show, and I really liked the source material. Quick listen, I think I listen at 2 times speed to my audiobooks, so it was like 30 minutes or something like that. I listened to it on my commute to work. Conversely, What Moves the Dead is about Easton. Easton gets a letter in the beginning of the novel about a best friend who is ill, and he thinks his sister is dying. Easton gets to this estate and there's a doctor there in the midst of figuring out the illnesses and trying to improve their friend's health. The sister dies. Obviously, the house is like slowly falling apart. It hits a lot of the same notes as the short story, but more in like the T. Kingfisher writing style. T. Kingfisher has such a varied and wide array of genre bending novels. They tend to write a little bit cozy, a little bit gothic, a little bit all over the place stories, no matter what genre they're writing in, and that definitely feels like that here. I think they've taken the very short, concise, sort of restricted short story and done a very good job of it. So far, we have had a lot of interesting motifs that harken back to the short story, but they expound upon it in a really interesting and eerie and creepy way. I am reading the ebook, which is obviously a different reading experience than the audiobook, but it's still fully capturing the sort of like doom and gloom and the way that this household is just completely losing its structure, its stability, and how that is also mimicked in the family. It's a really interesting story, and I'm enjoying it so far. I finished What Moves the Dead. I really liked it. I ended up landing on a 4-star for it. It follows very similar beats to the original short story, so I enjoyed that. It went a little bit further into like the cause of the fall of the family, and it's like a spore, so it's like spore fungus horror. And personally, one of my biggest fears, phobias, whatever, is things crawling under my skin or getting into my body and like leaving my body, like crawling out of my, and me having to witness that, that's just horrifies me. So it was sufficiently creepy. The length of it was great. Horror does best in short form, in short page length. Some of my favorite horror of all time is pretty short, under the 300-page mark, and I just think that works the best, especially for haunted house, really claustrophobic stories. I think it does really well. So I'm very happy with this one. It stays true to the original story while delving a little bit more into like the interesting aspects of it, like the relationship with the family and what's actually causing the downfall, where it's a little bit more ambiguous in the original short story. This one served more like supernatural element, but more grounded as well. So I really liked it. I like T. Kingfisher's writing, and there's very common threads across all of their stories that I connect with and that I enjoy, and I certainly would be willing to read more horror from them. Again, I understand why people love T. Kingfisher, and I know why it's on the list. Another author that I can anticipate next year will be on the list as well. We have the September House. So I am currently 30% of the way through the September House, and this is so kooky. It's such a kooky horror book. It's basically about this woman. We start off the book with her and her husband having purchased the home. And it's the first couple of years that they live there. They've lived there for 4 years at the start of the story. A couple of months prior to the start of the story, her husband has gone missing. She is coexisting with a bunch of different entities in this house, and the house is like severely haunted. Like blood pouring from the walls, and a woman who's her maid with a like bastion head, and just a ton of different spirits. And her daughter, who's an adult, calls and is like, hey, have you talked to Dad? Like, I haven't talked to him in a while. And for months, her mom was just like, yeah, you know, he's busy, he's writing or whatever. And then finally, her daughter is like, yeah, I haven't talked to him in a while. Like, I'm getting suspicious. What is happening? Like, what's going on? And she's finally like, oh yeah, your dad, that guy? Yeah, he's like gone. I don't know what happened, but he's just like not here anymore. And don't bother coming and investigating because I'm sure it's fine. You know, he's just gone. It's not a big deal. Her daughter is like, yeah, I know. She comes back to the house to investigate what's going on with her father. And so this first 30% has been the main character prepping the house for her daughter's arrival. she is like in love with this house. And even when all of this scary, weird, horrific shit started popping up, she didn't want to leave the house. And so she has like slowly over time become accustomed to all the weird shit and like just lives with it. And she has a priest on like rotation every 2 months that comes out and like blesses the house to calm the spirits down and stuff like that, and so is prepping the house for her daughter's arrival. She obviously doesn't want her daughter to like freak out about what's going on, and so she hires this priest. The priest comes in and he's blessing the basement, which they don't tend to do. Like, they bless the door, but it's like barred shut, and so they go down into the basement and some freaky shit starts happening. Like, he gets teleported into the air and like these flies fly out of his mouth. So ever since then, like, stuff's crazy. Like, obviously the door isn't barred because it would look weird, and so the house is just having a meltdown. And the reason it's called the September house is because all of the like really intense paranormal activity starts in September. And so it's September and she doesn't want her daughter to visit because she knows like this is the height of the activity. And so she's like trying to get everything prepped. I'm just intrigued by this story so much. It's such an interesting approach to a haunted house. Like, she's just completely enamored with this house, just doesn't seem fazed by any of the weird shit that's going on, like blood dripping from the walls. She just doesn't seem to care in any regard, and she doesn't want to leave. We also don't really know what happened with her husband, but she's just very nonchalant about the fact that like he's missing or whatever happened to him. Like, she just doesn't seem to be fazed by it, and it's just so interesting. She's such an interesting character, and it says a lot about a character and a person in general about how they perceive their children and their children's behavior. And she has such a weird reaction to her daughter, and it just like, the whole thing is fascinating. I will say the actual prep portion of the story was a lot of telling and not showing, which I don't necessarily mind because it is the setup, and it's like fun little things like unburying bones and performing little rituals and stuff that she's doing to prep the house. And so like the overall story is obviously about her daughter being there trying to investigate what happened to her father, but we didn't really get to see any of that. We were just sort of told that she did it. Hopefully that's not like a reoccurring thing, but so far I'm enjoying it. It's quite fun. It's not your typical like horror haunted house story, and it's so interesting the way that narration can change your perception of a story. Like, something that objectively is a horrifying thing, like horrifying stuff that's happening, just the way that the narrator is handling all of it has changed the way you view this stuff happening. It's just fascinating. So I'm really liking it. I'm really liking the audiobook. It's well done, and I'm interested to see where the story goes.
So I seem to have lost my clip about me wrapping up this book, but I really enjoyed this. I was filming this video over like a month span, so by the time I got to the end, I forgot that I had read this book, but it was exceptional. It's so funny, it's kooky, it's fun, and it also has a very heartwarming and a little bit tough message. It deals with some pretty hard topics, but I think the overall message of the book, while the tone is very funny, it's a good read. It's got more going on underneath the surface than what it seems like, but overall the audiobook was really good, and I landed on a 4-star. It's just a great story, and I think if you're looking for a fun time, this is good, and if you're looking for a fun time with a little bit of meaning and heart underneath it, this is also very good.
Home Before Dark at number 10. I again don't like Riley Sager. I have read Home Before Dark and I wasn't a fan. Another haunted house story. Number 11, we have Our Wives Under the Sea. I am halfway through Our Wives Under the Sea. That is 115 pages in. It's a very short book. This is following the point of view of two women. They are married, and we are following Miri, whose wife was a marine biologist. She did a dive into Marianas Trench and went missing for 6 months, and when she comes back, she's not acting anything like her typical self. She's very disconnected. She won't eat. She'll like run the tap and like sit and watch water come out of the taps, and she just doesn't really talk. And then we're also following Leah, the wife's point of view, as she is going down in the submarine and what happens down below. I'm loving this so much. Yesterday I was not in the reading mood at all, but I decided to pick it up and I sat down and read the 115 pages like that. This is so fascinating and so creepy. It's incredibly eerie, and the tone shifts between the two points of view keep it really engaging. The chapters vary in length, but I think they give the appropriate time to each chapter's subject. So in particular for Miri, it's a lot about the present, but also how they met and their relationship and how Leah was prior to this dive, and how her being a marine biologist and doing dives has affected their relationship and what it looks like now. We have gotten more of her points of view than the wife, but we're slowly getting more of Leah's points of view as well. And it's fascinating, it's interesting, it's creepy, and I'm just chomping at the bit to get into what happens. A lot of this is touted as like deeply romantic, which I can see, because I think Miri's point of view is going to be a lot of like bringing her wife back to who she is, but I'm fascinated by Leah's points of view and like the weird creepy stuff and the weird behaviors that Leah is exhibiting. So I'm really liking this, and I think Julia Armfield's writing is just next level. It's not too overstated, and it just hits that right level of creepiness for the story. So I'm very happy that this was on the list and I decided to read it. I kind of anticipated that I would like this one the most out of any of them, and I am definitely finding that to be true. So I have finished Our Wives Under the Sea, and this was so good. This struck the perfect balance between horror, scary, creepy, suffocating feelings, and like a life study, like a study of someone just trying to get their partner back and someone trying to get their life back and balance their wants and desires with their partner. And it's exceptional. It's exceptional. This is definitely the best book that I read for this video. It's fully a 5-star. This is fantastic. It's a great short horror. Everything about this was executed so well. The writing style, the characters, the switches between points of view, the short chapters, the longer chapters, like the balance is just struck in every way in this, and I'm so happy. And then lastly at number 12 is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I understand why a lot of these books are on this list and why we will continue to see a lot of the same authors over and over again on these lists, but I can't say that I'm too happy about it. I can't say that these are like the best horror that came out this year. These are like the best horror that you can read. I am a little bit disappointed with what I read. Yeah, just kind of disappointed in the list. Like the ones that on the list that I think are really good, I have obviously already read. I should have known looking at the list that like Stephen King and Grady Hendrix, like I just wasn't going to enjoy their stories. I am happy with the ones that were on the list. The reoccurring stories that people really love and recommend are obviously great, like Mexican Gothic and those stories. These that I had left were not good, except the obviously What Moves the Dead and Our Wives Under the Sea. This one seems to be really well regarded. Mixed opinions on What Moves the Dead. I'm happy that I read the list, but I'm not happy with what's on the list. So hopefully by the end of the year, when these lists come out and when we see like the Goodreads most voted for and all of that, we'll get some switch up and some good books. I'm considering reading the Goodreads Choice Awards in the horror category. That's something that y'all are interested in, definitely let me know. Overall, this list I think is representative of the most read books, which is what the title suggests, but it's definitely not the best in my opinion. That's it for the video. I'd love to talk down below your thoughts on anything that I read. If you've read any of the books on this list and loved them, or had any opinion on them, I would love to talk down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you are into videos like this. I do a ton of different types of videos, vlogs, reading challenges. We talk about media, everything under the sun, anything that I have an interest in. Don't forget to subscribe. All of my social medias are linked down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.